On the 28th of February 2026, confirmation came that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, was dead. Within hours, Iranian state media went dark. Regional air defenses activated across the Gulf. Israeli forces moved to the highest alert level, and inside the United States, emergency briefings were called. Not just in the Situation Room, in the Pentagon, at Langley, and at Mar-a-Lago, where President Trump was briefed directly. This was not just a leadership death. This was the sudden disappearance of the one man America had spent decades trying to pressure, contain, and outmaneuver. And now he was gone, not on America's terms, not through a deal, not through a negotiated exit, just gone. Who controls what happens next? And does America benefit from this, or does it just inherit a much harder problem? Let's establish what America is actually dealing with. Khamenei governed Iran since 1989. For 35 years, he was the single point of authority over Iran's military, its nuclear program, its Revolutionary Guards, and its foreign policy. Every significant decision passed through him. He was also the man who survived every American pressure campaign. The 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which Trump withdrew from in 2018, calling it the worst deal ever made. Maximum pressure sanctions, targeted strikes on Iranian proxies. The killing of Qasem Soleimani in 2020, Iran's most powerful military commander, ordered personally by Trump. Khamenei absorbed all of it and kept the system running. Now he is gone. On February 28, Iranian sources and international intelligence agencies confirmed his death. The circumstances remain contested. What is not contested is the result. The Supreme Leader's office is vacant. Iran's constitution assigns the assembly of experts to select a successor, but that body is composed of clerics with deeply divided loyalties. There is no consensus candidate. There is no figure who combines Khamenei's religious authority with his political grip. Within 12 hours, three things happened at once. Iran's Revolutionary Guards issued a statement asserting operational continuity, a signal directed both inward to Iranian factions and outward to America and Israel. Israel's defense minister went on record. Any Iranian proxy that tried to exploit this moment would face direct response. And the U.S. Secretary of Defense, under Trump's direction, quietly repositioned two carrier strike groups already operating in the region. The headline is the death. The real story is what America does next, and whether Trump's team has a strategy for a Middle East where their primary adversary just lost its central command. Here is what changed for America, and what got harder. Trump spent his first term and his return to office pursuing a single strategic logic on Iran: maximum pressure, sanctions, isolation, military deterrence. The theory was that enough pressure would either force Iran to negotiate on American terms or weaken the regime from within. That strategy required one thing to work: a central authority in Tehran capable of making a deal. You can't negotiate a surrender with a government that has no one who can sign. Now America faces exactly that problem. Inside Iran, power fractured the moment Khamenei's death was confirmed. The Revolutionary Guards, the IRGC, are the most organized force remaining. They control military assets, intelligence networks, and significant economic interests. In the absence of a supreme leader, they are the most powerful actor in Iran. But the IRGC cannot make political decisions with the authority Khamenei had. They have guns. They do not have religious legitimacy. And in the Iranian system, that legitimacy is not optional. It is the foundation of legal authority. This matters for America directly. Trump's maximum pressure strategy worked as coercion when there was someone in Tehran who could feel the pressure and choose to respond. With power fragmented among factions, conservative clerics, reformists, IRGC commanders, hardliners, coercion becomes harder to direct. You can pressure a government. It is much harder to pressure a committee that doesn't agree on anything. Outside Iran, America's position shifted in two directions simultaneously. The United States gains a tactical opening. Iran's ability to coordinate a unified response to American actions is temporarily degraded. That is a real military advantage. But America also loses its most important strategic tool: the ability to send a message and know someone received it. Back-channel diplomacy. The quiet conversations that prevent escalation requires knowing who holds power. Trump's team, even with its more aggressive posture toward Iran, relied on those channels. They are now significantly harder to use. Power in Tehran dispersed. And for America, dispersed power across an adversary is not simply a weaker adversary. It is an unpredictable one. This is not the first time America has watched a centralized adversary suddenly lose its center. In 2003, the United States removed Saddam Hussein from power. The assumption in Washington was that toppling the central authority would create space for a new government, for American influence, for regional stability. Instead, it created a decade of fragmented militias, proxy wars, and Iranian expansion directly into the vacuum America created. Iran was one of the biggest beneficiaries of America removing Saddam. Think about that for a moment. In 2011, NATO forces with American backing under President Obama helped remove Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Same assumption: remove the central authority, create political space. What followed was a fractured state that became a corridor for weapons, migration crises, and competing foreign powers, including Russia. The pattern is consistent. When America encounters a power vacuum it did not plan for, it tends to react rather than lead. Military assets move, diplomatic channels scramble, Congress demands answers, and the administration, whether it's Trump or anyone else, gets pulled into a sustained crisis posture that consumes political bandwidth for months. Trump's team came back to office with a clear Iran posture: maximum pressure, no new nuclear deals on Iran's terms, full support for Israeli deterrence. That posture assumed Khamenei was still the man across the table. He isn't anymore. And the question Trump's national security team is asking right now in private, urgently, is the same question American presidents have faced every time a power structure in the Middle East collapsed without warning. Who do we call? Who has the authority to make a commitment and actually enforce it? Who can tell the IRGC to stand down and be obeyed? Right now, no one has a clean answer. And in the Middle East, unanswered questions do not stay unanswered for long. Other actors answer them first. Now think forward from America's position specifically. The first consequence is the one already in motion: military repositioning. The carrier strike groups Trump's defense secretary moved are not symbolic. They are there because a fragmented Iranian command structure significantly raises the risk of unauthorized escalation. A missile launch into the Gulf, a Strait of Hormuz closure, a proxy strike on American forces in Iraq or Syria. Trump has already demonstrated willingness to use military force against Iranian assets. The killing of Soleimani in 2020 established that. The question now is whether that deterrent still functions when there is no centralized authority in Tehran capable of receiving and processing the threat. Deterrence requires a rational actor on the other end. A fractured command may not provide one. The second consequence is the nuclear file, and this one is the most urgent for the Trump administration. Iran's nuclear program does not pause for a succession crisis. The centrifuges keep spinning. The enrichment levels hold. The program has its own personnel and its own institutional momentum. Trump withdrew from the JCPOA in 2018 because he believed maximum pressure was a stronger lever than the deal. That calculation now faces its hardest test. If Iranian hardliners, freed from Khamenei's strategic caution, decide to accelerate toward weapons-grade enrichment to demonstrate strength during the transition, the window for a non-military solution narrows fast. And if that window closes, Israel acts. And if Israel acts, America gets pulled in regardless of what Trump wants. The third consequence is the proxy network. And this one is the most immediately dangerous. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, Iraqi militias that have targeted American forces repeatedly. These groups operated under Iranian coordination for decades. Without central direction from Tehran, they do not become harmless, they become autonomous. An autonomous Hezbollah with no strategic leash from Tehran is not a weaker Hezbollah. It may be a more dangerous one, because it no longer needs to calculate Iranian interests before acting. American forces in the region currently numbering in the tens of thousands across bases in Iraq, Syria, Jordan, and the Gulf face a threat environment where the pressure remains, but the command structure behind it is unknown. The fourth consequence is domestic, and Trump feels this one directly. An extended uncertainty period in Iran means Congress demanding simultaneous answers on military posture, nuclear monitoring, sanctions strategy, and alliance commitments. Trump's legislative agenda on any other front narrows considerably. The political bandwidth a sustained Middle East crisis consumes is enormous. If this pattern continues, the balance of authority in the Middle East could look very different within a few years. Not because one man died, but because his death forced America and every other actor to recalculate, and those recalculations, once made, are very difficult to reverse. Return to the question America is actually sitting with tonight. Does the United States benefit from Khamenei's death? On the surface, possibly. The man who directed 35 years of anti-American strategy in the region is gone. The architect of Iran's proxy network, its nuclear ambitions, and its resistance to every American pressure campaign is no longer in the room. But strategy is not about removing your adversary. It's about what comes after. Trump's maximum pressure approach was built on a specific assumption that there was someone in Tehran capable of making a decision under pressure, someone who could read the cost of confrontation and choose negotiation, someone, ultimately, who could sign. That assumption no longer holds. America now faces an Iran where the decision-making authority is contested, the nuclear program is unsupervised at the top, the proxy network is operating without central coordination, and the IRGC, the most powerful remaining actor, has no political legitimacy to make binding commitments. Washington has positioning. It does not have a partner. Trump has leveraged sanctions, military presence, alliance commitments, but leverage only works when the other side can respond to it coherently. The next 30 to 60 days will define more than Iran's political future. They will define whether America leads this moment or reacts to it. Whether Trump's team moves first with a clear diplomatic or military strategy, or whether the vacuum fills itself on terms set by Iranian factions, Israeli calculations, or other actors who move faster. This may not dominate the news cycle for long. Other stories will emerge. Attention will shift. But shifts like this quietly redefine who holds the final word. Not through announcements. Through the gradual closing of options until one configuration of power becomes the only viable one. That process has already begun, and America is not yet sure which side of it it's on.